Good afternoon, Bimblers. It's not the morning this time. We've come out bimbling on a Sunday, and for some reason the trains don't start until 10 o'clock on a Sunday. Nobody can ever give me a good reason why. But anyway, you join me here at St Asaph, Britain's second smallest city. And today we're going to go and have a look at Denbigh and see what that's all about. But first off, we need to go and see something just round the corner. Our first mission is a side quest. So let's stop messing about and let's bimble. Time's ticking on.
Itself. To me you were a warming hand that melts to the bone. The flowers grown from my heart.
This is the old Pont Daffyd Bridge, and these days it's a bridge over nothing, or a bridge to nowhere. Records go back to 1485 of there being a bridge in this location, but this isn't it. This bridge was built in the 1600s by Bishop Daffyd of St Asaph's Cathedral. The path that passed over this bridge would have been the most direct way to get into St Asaph. Right from the 1600s to the 1960s. In 1969 they shifted the River Clwyd, which used to pass underneath this bridge. That was in order to make way for the widening of the A55, which you can no doubt hear in the background. After they shifted the river, it left this bridge a little bit landlocked, a bridge to nowhere, except for a farmer's field. Although it is a right of way, so I am permitted to go through. I'm from Warrington, so Victorian shifting rivers is a common occurrence to us. But it might be quite impressive to you. What might seem even more impressive, the first time they moved the River Clwyd was back in 1277, and that was done by big Longshanks, all 6'2" of him, Edward I. He shifted the course of the river to make a more direct path to his castle at Rhuddlan. All very impressive stuff for these medieval types. Anyway, that's enough side quests. Let's bimble.
Drawn between a light to capture, but only show in pictures sewn from my arms. Time, clouds kept the light from those eyes. Still, love grown consumed, and you know I'll never let it go.
Well, that's our side quest done. It's time to irritate everyone on this A road now. Sorry everybody. Let's bimble.
In time, I'll never let it go. You'll find it's right. I'll only ever know how to speak my mind. I'll only ever know how to speak my mind. To me it was a long mistake. To me it was a golden handshake to reapply those lazy arms in my heart. To you it was a dream suspended to relocate right from the break to the start. Over time, clouds kept the light from those eyes.
On our way to Denbigh, we passed through Trevenant. It's a very small, unassuming village with quite a big claim to fame, with this church behind me, the Holy Trinity Church here in Trevenant. It was designed by Sir George Gilbert Scott. You know I like a church, and you know my favourite fella that built churches was Edward Graham Paley. But Edward Graham Paley is like the Kinks of church builders. Sir George Gilbert Scott is like the Beatles of church builders. You know, might not be your favourite, but levels above. I have a small list here in my big book of Bimble of things that Sir George Gilbert Scott designed and or built. King's College Chapel, St Mary's Cathedral in Glasgow, chapels at Oxford and Cambridge University, the Holy Trinity Church in Shanghai, not into churches, the Albert Memorial in Kensington, the University of Glasgow, Leeds General Infirmary, and the Midland Grand Hotel at St Pancras Station in London, where they filmed the video for Wannabe by the Spice Girls. I'm sure that's what he envisaged. He thought, I'm going to put lots of steps in this place so that people can watch them Spice Girls jiggling about all over them. The Holy Trinity Church here in Trevenant was commissioned in honour of a John Lloyd Salisbury, and it was his daughters that decided they should build a church in his honour, and they obviously knew Sir George Gilbert Scott. The Salisbury family were right poshos. That goes back to 1497 when Henry VII knighted one of them. That was Thomas Salisbury. And then in 1601 a different John Salisbury, he was knighted. That John Salisbury actually had a poem dedicated to him by Shakespeare. That was called The Phoenix and the Turtle. So right poshos with right posh friends. There's an interesting fact about the John Salisbury that this church is built in honour of. He wasn't actually a blood relative of the family. He was adopted. He was actually of Italian descent. But the Salisbury family needed a male heir. And he flourished. He didn't do bad at all. He became the High Sheriff of Flintshire. So he fit straight in. Just shows what you can achieve. Let's bimble.
Clouds kept the light from those eyes. Still, love grown consumed. And you know, I'll never let it go. You'll find in time, I'll never let it go. You'll find it's right. I'll only ever know how to speak my mind. I'll only ever know how to speak my mind. Over time, clouds kept the light from those eyes. Still, love grown consumed. And you know, I'll never let it go. You'll find in time, I'll never let it go. You'll find it's right. I'll only ever know how to speak my mind. I'll only ever know how to speak my mind. My mind.
Finally, we reached Denbigh, and we're sat outside the theatre here in Denbigh, which used to be called the Futura Cinema. When I decided to bimble here, I did my research, and sometimes what I do is I go on Google Street View and see if there's anything interesting to see, and I spied this building. You know, it's a beautiful building with its stone archway and stone pillars. And I found out it used to be the Futura Cinema, owned by a man called the Man in Black, Peter Moore. He was actually convicted of 4 murders. He was originally from St Helens, but he moved to Kimmel Beach when he was a young boy. And when he became an adult, he started buying cinemas. And he had several cinemas all around North Wales. We walked past one in our Grand Welsh Bimble, over in Blaenau Festiniog. Peter Moore was known as the Man in Black because he liked to dress all in black, and I guess because he liked a lot of horror films. He stabbed and mutilated 4 men and committed sexual attacks on 39 other men, all around Merseyside and North Wales. When he was caught and convicted, he tried to blame it all on a fictitious boyfriend called Jason. But Jason was just the name of a character from Friday the 13th, you know, the horror film. The jury found him guilty on all counts, and he was sent to Wakefield Prison. And get on this, he befriended Harold Shipman in prison before Harold Shipman committed suicide. Just an all-round bad egg. Anyway, that's enough of murders from 1995. Let's go to the place of some murders from the 13th century, Denbigh Castle. Well, Bimblers, it's quite a long way up that hill, but it's well worth it. Stunning views, stunning vistas, and I suppose if you're going to build your little fortress, you've got to build it up a big hill. Denbigh actually means little fortress. But whose idea was it to build such a little fortress? Well, actually, it's not that little. It's quite big. This bit that we're in right now, you have to pay £5 to get in. Well, I don't have to pay. Thanks to your generous donations, you lot paid for me to get in here today. Thanks very much. This is probably the largest section of castle that you can see. But if you go walking about, you can see lots of other sections of castle. In fact, if you're too tight to pay the £5, you can still get a lot of castle action just walking around the perimeter. But whose idea was this little fortress that's so massive? Well, it's friend of the channel, Big Longshanks himself, all 6'2" of him, Edward I. He built the castle as one of a series of castles he built at the beginning of the First Welsh War. Don't ask me why it's called the First Welsh War. I've said this 100 times. The Welsh and the English have been fighting for centuries before then. Anyway, he built this castle, and he built a few other castles in Wales, and we bimbled to some of them. Rudland Castle, and Harlech Castle, and Conway Castle. We're going to visit some more as well. Got my eye on Beaumaris. He called this series of castles his Iron Ring. But his Iron Ring wasn't so ironclad. In 1294, Madog ap Llywelyn invaded the castle and took it over for 1 month, between November and December. But apparently Edward was back in by Christmas. And then in the 1400s, Owain Glyndwr set fire to the castle. But he could have just waited for the English to do that. During the War of the Roses, you know, the war between Lancashire and Yorkshire, They destroyed the castle. God knows why Lancashire and Yorkshire were fighting here in Wales. I suppose that's just what the English do, bring the Welsh into it. They did the same thing at Harlech. In fact, the song Men of Harlech is actually about the War of the Roses. Anyway, it was that War of the Roses that destroyed the town at the bottom of the hill and brought it up to the top of the hill. And that's why we had to come all the way up here. And it's why I'm going to have to go all the way back down again now and find Saracen. We've got to ride all the way back to Rill now. It's going to take ages. My little Molly will be in bed.